The Zaralek Caverns were released into World of Warcraft in Dragonflight patch 10.1, the most recent patch. And the zone has no flaws, right? Well, today we uncraft Zaralek Caverns and find out how broken this new zone is. Of course. Let's explore the out-of-bounds area of this new zone. In order to perform this glitch, you will need to be able to access the caverns and have dragon riding, though at this point most people playing retail will already have dragon riding. Funnily enough, I actually have not finished the initial Dragonflight campaign, so I've not quested here at all yet. I have no idea what any of the lore or anything like that is down here. I just know there's a giant cave now underneath the... Well, it's not technically under the dragon houses, we'll find out. But I was shown by a subscriber just how broken this area is. Oh, by the way, my daughter disabled the Windows key on my computer, so I had to fix that before I could really do too much. The first thing you'll want to do is make your way down into the caverns, as I already have here, and you want to be kind of in the center of the caves. Now, I don't have all the dragon riding skills, but I was still able to easily make it up to where we need to go, though I did have to take a breather at one point. You're going to want to look straight up, and you should see these green crystals. We need to get up there, and I was able to do this with 5 ovals of vigor, whatever it is, not sure. I was able to fly up to this ledge, and now you can fly all the way up to the crystals, and there is a chance that you might lag out here. I did the first time I did this, and I actually lost a ton of footage, including me getting out of bounds. OBS stated that it was still working, but when I double checked, it had some kind of error. So I had to show how to get out of bounds here later on. Once you reach the highest area, if you look closely, you'll notice that there are multiple holes throughout the crystals. That's perfect for a demon hunter like me to get out of bounds. I'm positive there are multiple methods to getting out of this area, but I do recommend a demon hunter for consistency, as well as specific exploration techniques unique to demon hunters, such as demon hunter wall climbing. That's a really important one. This hole here is a particular place I was able to get out of using metamorphosis. Just click around in here and you should find a little tiny section that you're able to metamorphosis to. I strangely don't have my exact jump on recording here. I'm not really sure why. Apparently recorded the area I was able to escape it just to show it off. Now that we're out of bounds, always just take a look around. This place is incredible to look out from out of bounds. There are so many strange textures, and there's a very large area to explore. Fair warning though, a lot of the exploration is going to contain very dark textures that may be hard to see, and YouTube always makes everything like 3 shades darker for some reason. The first thing I do is climb to the highest point of these crystals so that I can glide as far as possible into the distance, and I was able to get a better view of the area. Initially when I started gliding, I shot for this cliff to the left, but I did not make it and instead landed on a platform below it. We'll get back to the upper area of the mountains later. For now, just take in this crazy scenery while my character eloquently glides down to the flat surface. I did land on this lower ledge before hitting the ground, and it actually has a massive rock structure on it. Sadly, I did not check the map, because if I did, I would actually have seen that this is probably one of the entrances to the cave. Also, there are tons of invisible walls out of bounds here, so just make sure that you have a method to get past them on your character. Any method will work. As I was saying though, I originally thought that Zaralek Caverns was just underneath Dragon Owls. This is not true. I actually think that it's a different zone, and I think that these caves are the teleport. It's a very smooth transition, one of the smoothest in all of World of Warcraft. I think the rock was a blocked off exit, as we are not in the right area to trigger the boulder from disappearing since we're out of bounds. This was actually confirmed by the person who showed me the glitch, and we will get more into that later. Also, if you haven't noticed already, this area is just completely massive, and it's almost pitch black. It's really hard to see what's even going on out here. I will likely have to increase the brightness a little bit in post-production of this video. After a bit of walking, I strangely came upon a body of water. This is super weird. You cannot fish in it, and I don't think there's water anywhere else in the entire cavern besides the out-of-bounds areas. At the edge of the water, I decided to perform the Sea Mist Potion glitch just to see how big this area really is. It's big. It's very big. That's what she said. This also solidifies that this area is not underneath the Dragon Owls, as we would actually see the Dragon Owls here. Also, if you want to know how to perform the Sea Mist Potion glitch, I do have a guide on that on the channel. I then went ahead and looked through the bizarre chunk of water as I was really thrown for a loop with this discovery. At this point, there's a massive drop off in the cliff, and sadly, started, and I couldn't explore as much as I wanted. It was very strange to see all of this. A perfect rectangle of water. After the water abruptly ends, I check out the rest of the entire dark chunk. I traveled to the very edge of the area, and sadly, I didn't find anything nearly as interesting as the water, but seeing the massive cavernous structures in the background was actually quite impressive. Also, looking underneath the map, we can see giant glowing globes. I'm sure that these are from some kind of lighting effect in the zone, but it's still kind of crazy to see how far away we are, and we can still see these globes perfectly clear. After traveling to the corner and then back towards the caverns where we started, we arrived back at the giant mountain structures. They're pretty cool with the moonlight reflecting off of them, and there are definitely some weird textures here, but I'll be honest, it's very difficult to navigate these areas, and I couldn't explore the mountains as much as I wanted to, or the detail that I wanted to. At some point, we get close enough to the caverns of time that the opaque orange color of the cavern's skybox, as we were in a regular skybox for most of this exploration, it reappears, and that pretty much sums up this giant area. It's pretty much nothing for the most part, but the water thing was weird, and the mountain structures look kind of cool in the moonlight. But do you remember that cliff I missed earlier? Let's try to reach there again. Now back out of bounds, I put my thinking cap on, and I use a goblin glider. Like, how did I not think about that? To reach the cliff that I missed earlier. This made it incredibly easy. The exploration becomes a little insane at this point, as we now have access to almost all of the outer reaches of the Zaralek Caverns, and we can constantly look either into the zone to the left, like we can see the inside structure, or we can look to the outer edge to the right. There's so much to see here, and I don't think I might have covered half of it. Now we can really tell how the zone was made by the developers, and it's honestly impressive. I'm kind of impressed by this. Though the zone is easily uncrafted, that does not mean that this is not a cool zone. Seeing the lava cool thing here in particular is amazing. I don't know what made them come up with this, but it looks really cool. The purple glow surrounding the area is just eerie. Looking at the map, it shows us that these black mountains are actually the edges of the entire inbound zone. They surround the entire inbound zone, so it's really interesting. The only note for these mountains though, you will have to get through a ton of invisible barriers to break through, but nothing a little metamorphosis cannot handle. Looking over this cliff just shows how crazy the zone is from above. The mountains are surprisingly easy to traverse from the top, though there are areas that can get quite confusing here or there. One thing I want to mention again is that I'm not super familiar with the area, but this floating upside down mountain is very peculiar. It's significantly bigger than all the rest, and it's just above the entire area. Is there a reason for this massive structure that I don't know? I just don't know why it's there. Here we see some green parts of the zone, and while they're not as cool as the lava, I still find this area very interesting. I found another set of rocks called Lookout Breach, but I did not look into it on the map, and I probably should have, because I'm sure that this is probably another entrance. When I reach this point, you can see that there are layers upon layers of assets that make up the ceiling of the cavern. The stalactites, I'm pretty sure, are the ones that go from the top down. These I gotta look it up now. Yeah, okay, I was right. The stalactites are invisible from one side, but you would fall straight through if you tried to jump onto one of them, as only the visible side is solid. The invisible side, you fall right through. Further on, the texture seems to break more and more, to a point where they are just sheer jagged cliffs. I always think of these textures kind of as if the developers literally carve out a section of land that they previously made. While not crazily weird, I do find them interesting. Why make these giant outer black mountains if they're never going to be used? I thought that was very interesting. This here is one of my favorite views in all of the exploration. Again, this place is just absolutely massive. Looking to the south, we can see that the Black Mountains travel far into the background. This is strange as there is no cavern to traverse out that way. It may be possible that quest zones are back here or some kind of like teleportation to a different zone out here, but I'm pretty sure that at some point my location would change to those even if I'm like 100 or 200 feet above them. I don't know why this area was kept in, but I definitely had to explore it. I noticed something very strange in the background. There are dragons flying around? How can I see them all the way from over here? Sadly, I wanted to get over there but was never able to. I tried so many times. There are massive chunks of flat land in between, and after 4 or 5 attempts, I decided that I'll just have to come back here and figure out why there are dragons flying around later. Here is one attempt to get over to them. I should not have felt a rush using the glider. Sometimes this actually speeds the gliding up, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sure exactly what causes it to speed it up or anything like that, so this is something I figured out just like screwing around. It wasn't like it's not a well-known thing to get further and gliding. I don't know. I wish that would have worked here, but it did not. Well, we're technically in a different section of the map than before, so I decided to explore while I was down here. The skybox was interesting as it was a sunset background and not that orange hue like we saw before, but even looking under the map did not reveal anything of note. At the corner of the flat texture, I was so far away from the caverns that I was no longer on the map. That's pretty normal, but pretty much up to this point, I had not left the map, though I think there was one point I did. Heading back to where I fell, there was a large portion of the map that wasn't just a sheer mountain. It was actually carved, and some of those giant rocks had some weird textures, but that was pretty much it for this area. Nothing too crazy. I reset my exploration, and this time I flew up to another part of the Black Mountains that was much farther along, just so I could catch up to where I was before rather quickly. Now it's time to explore the giant southern section of the Out of Bounds Caverns. It's massive. There are tons of those rock textures, but just beyond those, there is so much land back here that some areas are unloaded and only load in when I get closer to them. Weirder still, the skybox changes here to a hazy gold color, a color I don't know if I've ever seen in World of Warcraft. And then it actually turned back to normal pretty quickly, but it was still weird that just that one area had that haze. I'm not sure what causes this, but it's very interesting nonetheless. Finally, we hit an edge, and this is just crazy. There is just so much unused land out here. It's insane. At this point, the scenery is completely bizarre, and we can see weird textured mountains, and behind them, there are untextured mountains. That is so strange. It was so strange that I actually added this to my Patreon exclusive hint for the $1.50 plus patrons. More about Patreon at the end of the video. Thankfully, in this lighting, we can actually see the textures of the black surface, and they're beautiful in their own way. Then I spotted something strange, 2 floating structures way above the caverns. I have no idea what these could be for, but they are definitely out of place. Finally, I decided that we had explored these entire southern mountains, and it was now time to go to the lower area that we haven't been to, as there's no good way to make it up to the eastern side of the map. There's nothing too special in this lower area, but looking over the edge has some unusual bizarre textures that I've never seen when looking onto the map. Usually it's just empty, but here there are weird glitchy white sheets. Very strange. Weirdly, we can still see those out of place objects. We're very far away from them. They are loaded in this map no matter how far away we are from them. I wonder if it's kind of like an anchor. The last thing I found was this bizarre blue cloud. It kind of looked like it was rendered into the map, but I was never able to get close enough to find out what it actually was. The next time I glitched out of bounds, I decided to try a different area to glitch out of bounds. And weirdly, I found an Easter egg with this dragon and a dancing skeletal evoker. I never thought I'd see this. I'm not sure why the developers put this out here, but it's interesting nonetheless. There's no gold or treasure or anything like that. It's just straight up a skeleton dancing. This specific part was the wrong area to get out of bounds, but again, thankfully my subscriber Icky showed me how to get out of bounds on this side of the map as well. You want to get behind this wall here, you have to use the Helm of Rykrul glitch to get your head out of bounds. So I do this and I'm able to explore the rest of the eastern side of the map. Amazingly, we're able to do a small amount of dragon riding here, but with all good things must come to an end, and thus the end of dragon riding is this invisible wall. I used a goblin glider to get past this mountain. I'm not really sure if that was necessary, but I wanted to make sure I didn't fall again. This rock looks like it's floating, but it's actually part of a larger structure. And here we see another exit to the Dragon House. This is where my friend confirmed the theory that this is a separate zone. For the first time in this exploration, it actually looks like there's a lower area for exploration that's not just a flat texture. So the goal is to head down there. The scenery of the cavern is insane at this point, and I glide to the lower level, and the lighting just makes this place gorgeous. It almost looks like a different planet. Kind of looks like we're moon hopping or something. Here is the weirdest texture so far in these mountains, and it's just a giant missing chunk. Quite amazing. There are some great views over here, yet mainly we traverse far into the northern out of bounds area, which is just as large as the south. Unfortunately though, this area isn't quite nearly as flat. I decided to explore the lowest area first and found another unfishable lake. I am so sorry if you can hear crying in the background, my daughter is very hungry. It's quite interesting even though there isn't much to see out here other than that lake we just looked through. Going back into the north, the sky turned an orange color and surprisingly made the area incredibly difficult to see with all the dark textures. I mean, it wasn't really too bad until this happened. This made continuing through the area incredibly difficult. At one point I started falling completely and I lost where I was. I tried every toy I had to see if they'd help, and the only toy that really helped was a skyfire totem that changed the sky back to a moonlit area. But sadly this only fixes the area near the totem. Maybe an Icky black potion would have worked here, but I actually ran out, and that's very unfortunate. I needed that totem to follow me around, and it's not going to do that. And it has like a 10-minute cooldown or something. But I ended up becoming super disorientated here, and I got lost. Eventually, I fell into a very deep hole, and to be honest, this exploration was hitting around the 4 to 5 hour mark, and while, eventually I'd be able to spend 8 to 10 hours on these explorations, I don't. I do not have that kind of time right now. So unfortunately, I discovered a ton here, but I think if I come back, it's going to have to be a part 2. Well, what do you all think? Is Zaralek Caverns broken, or did World of Warcraft make a perfect zone? I want to give my patrons a huge shout out. You are all amazing, and I hope to provide all of you with enough content to make your contributions worth it. To sign up for the Patreon, you can check out the links below. There are different tiers, and I recommend the $1.50 tier. It's the not the cheapest. There is just a straight $1 donation tier, but the $1.50 tier is where you'll get some really nice perks. And you'll see your name at the end of every video, just like these amazing people on screen now, as well as other perks that you'll get. Thank you all for watching the UnCrafting of Zaralek Caverns.